Last year from the 26th of December to the 1st of January was my first time racing overseas in Tasmania, which counts, by the way, where I got the opportunity to talk to Olympians who competed in the Tokyo and Paris Olympic Games, getting valuable insights from them. Got a ton of race experience, learning a mental hack to get the most out of myself during races, and learnt more about how to deal with defeat when races don't go to plan. Now, if you're unfamiliar with who I am, I suggest you check out my short origin story right up here. So, overseas in Tasmania, every year from the 26th of December to the 1st of January, they run Tasmania carnivals, where they hold foot races, cycling races, and wood chopping competitions, all for prize money. I got the opportunity to compete because the carnival organizer reached out to my coach looking for runners who would be interested in competing, covering their food, accommodation, race fees, etc. So I took this opportunity to gain more race experience, as I don't really have too much of that, and I wanted to build upon it. As something that I learned last year from competing in my first athletic season outside of school is you can be fitter than all your competitors, but if you don't know how to execute that on the day of the race, then it means nothing. Having race experience on knowing when to make your move, how to position yourself in the race, and how to hold your position in the race is 50% of what it takes to win a race. Here's the link to that race where I learned that lesson. So the first lesson and insight that I got from this trip came from, so when I first traveled over to Tasmania via the commercial plane, then landed for the first time in an aeroplane, which was pretty cool. I've been on a plane, but I just hadn't landed before, so figure that one out. But once I found my bus that was to pick me up, I met my first Olympian, Tori West, who competed in the Paris Olympic Games in the heptathlon. Turns out the bus was only picking us two up. So I took this opportunity to learn as much as I could from her on the trip to our accommodation, as she was also competing in the Tasmania carnivals as well. I told her my origin story, and I found out that she was also in a similar situation to me, only started following a structured training program when she was 21. I thought starting at 18 was late. 21 is even later. And she made it still. And also found out that she grew up in a country town as well, in Townsville, Queensland, and had to make the journey to move to, I think it was Sydney and then Geelong to further pursue her Olympic quest. Just like how I had to move from a country town in Albury to Melbourne to pursue my Olympic quest. She talked about how since she started late, the results that she gets from competing in the multiple events she does are always overlooked compared to her younger competitors getting similar results. She gave me the example that during the Olympic trials last year, no one expected her to qualify. So much that they already started to prepare the paperwork for the people that they thought were going to make it, which, in a short story, she, instead of them, qualified instead. But she told me that there are advantages from starting later than others, and especially when you're growing up from a country town too. So number one, since you're starting later than others, you've got more energy and your body is more fresh compared to competitors who have been doing this for already 10 years on you and got the success you want, which only makes it harder for them to stay hungry for more, as they have already achieved most of the things that everyone aspires in the sport. So as the years go by, they're more susceptible to burnout, to wanting to do something else with their life. Which, an example of this is my mum, who she was one of those athletes who started training when she was 9 and 8. But there came a point in her life after 10 years of constantly training full-time every day for 10 years that she wanted to become a mother and do something else with her life. That's what made her quit. Then the other one is, since you've come from the country, your competitors in the city aren't used to competing with you. So you're unpredictable. you can catch them by surprise, as they're not used to racing against you for the last 8 years in the school system competitions or outside of the competitions as well. So you're the underdog. The coolest thing about talking with her is we were like-minded when we were talking about success. Our stories and strategies on how we're going to achieve those goals that we have in our life. These are the type of people that you want to surround yourself with, as they're only going to make you a better person from the lessons that you can learn from them, and they understand you. A way of knowing if someone's on the same wavelength as you should feel charged up, and that you have more energy at the end of the conversation than what you had when you came into the conversation. Not depleted or drained, which I have experienced in the past from other conversations that I have with people. Because I like what they say, which is cliche, and everyone's heard, you're the average of the 5 people that you hang around. So if those 5 people are all like-minded with you and have similar ambitions and goals to you, and every time when you leave a conversation you feel rejuvenated and charged up, that's only going to elevate you as a person. Now, the next insight and lesson that I got from first time racing overseas was over the next few days, I competed in the Hobart 1K and the 400 and mile in Devonport and Burnie. Before racing, the handicaps were released and I saw my marks that was given to me to start off on, and they were tough. This would mostly be because a couple weeks ago, I won my first pro race ever, which I did a race recap right here that you can watch. Because of that, I got given heavier handicaps, which made it super difficult for me to be competitive in the races I was in. Despite this, I still raced to the best I could, but I hated losing, which of course nobody does. But it was very demoralizing knowing that you're going into a race that you're going to be having people who are starting in front of you, who are fitter than you, and people who are starting slightly behind you, who are also just as fit as you. So I ended up placing second last in the 1K in Hobart, placed last in the heats for the 400, placed third last in the mile in Devonport. You get the point. I didn't place well. What I had to do in these moments is remind myself that the whole purpose of this trip was to gain that race experience that I lack at the moment. Because before this, I'd never run a 400 outside of Albury. And also, I've never run a mile before as well. I think I was more concerned about what others thought of me and my abilities with how I placed in these races. But I had to remind myself that one race doesn't define you as an athlete and your potential, as every Olympian who has won races had moments where they lost races. It's just the nature of the sport. So my last insight came from when I was running in these races themselves. I found that there'd be moments where I thought I was pushing myself and couldn't go any further until all it took was, so in one of the races in the Hobart 1K, I was pushing, it was the last lap, and then all of a sudden, my teammate comes up to me and starts challenging me, and then next thing you know, I find an extra gear, and I fight him off successfully. But until that point, I thought I was going at 100%. This is when I learned how truly important your mindset is during the race. And to be able to go to hell and then find that extra gear to go even further through it. This happened a few other times in the other races I ran in, but I started to notice a connection between all of them. In every situation this happened, I would set myself a challenge to overcome. So for example, when my teammate came up to me and started challenging me, what I thought to myself in my head was, I can't let him overtake me just after I've overtaken him in the race. I can't let this happen. And then what would happen is it would distract me from the pain that I'm going through during the race. And then my focus would shift from that to me trying to overcome this challenge. And this happened in another situation where it was the last lap and there was this one green dude ahead of me, about 50 meters. So I said to myself, all right, let's overtake him so he don't finish last in the race. And I find that extra gear, I overtake him, and then another dude as well who wasn't too far ahead of the green dude. I've been practicing this in training, saying to myself, stick with it, Marek, match your speed when I'm running in the front of some reps. Overall, that's what I learned racing overseas for the first time. So I hope you got something out of these lessons and insights. And like always, it's never too late to start your dreams.